The sun was just breaking through the fog, spilling gold over the lonely plains when Jack Harlow rode down from the ridge. His horse kicked up dust along the dry creek bed, the sound echoing across the empty valley. It was another quiet morning on the frontier until he saw her. She was standing by the riverbank barefoot, her dress torn and stained with dust and dried blood. Her hair was tangled, her shoulders trembling in the cold. For a long moment, Jack thought she might be a mirage, a ghost of the desert morning. But then she turned and he saw the bruise along her jaw. "Miss?" he called gently, reining his horse. She flinched, stepping back. Her eyes darted like a wild animal's. "Don't," she whispered, her voice small and broken. "Don't look at me." Her words cut through the quiet like a blade. Jack felt something twist in his chest. He dismounted slowly, removing his hat as if standing before something sacred. "I ain't here to hurt you," he said softly. "You're safe now, Mom." But she shook her head, clutching her torn shawl around her. "No one's safe. Not out here. Not anymore." The river's soft murmur was the only sound between them. Jack noticed the faint marks on her wrists, rope burns, and the way she limped when she tried to step away. It wasn't hard to guess what had happened. The frontier could be merciless to a woman alone. "Name's Jack Harlow," he said quietly. "I've got a ranch a few miles north. You can rest there. No one'll bother you." Her lips quivered. "You should just go. If they see you with me, they'll come for you too." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then let 'em come." She looked up then, really looked at him. His eyes were calm like still water, and his voice carried a kind of strength she hadn't heard in a long time. For a moment something inside her softened. He removed his coat and gently placed it around her shoulders. She tried to protest, but the warmth made her tremble. "You don't even know who I am," she said. Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Don't need to," he replied. "I can see enough." As they started walking toward his horse, the wind carried her soft sob, the sound of someone who hadn't been shown kindness in years. By the time they reached the ranch, she could barely stand. Jack lifted her down from the saddle, careful not to touch the bruises on her arms. She stumbled slightly, and for a second, she leaned against him, fragile, trembling, human. Inside, the fire crackled softly. He fetched her some water and a blanket, then turned away to give her space. But she couldn't stop shaking. "Why are you helping me?" she asked weakly. "People don't do that anymore." Jack paused, looking into the flames. "Maybe folks forgot how to be people out here," he said. "But I ain't one of them." She watched him silently, tears tracing clean paths down her dusty cheeks. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe, even if just for a night. As the wind howled, outside she whispered her name, Clara, and Jack knew that name would change. Everything, the days that followed, were quiet but heavy with unspoken pain. Clara rarely spoke, and when she did, her voice trembled as if every word might break her. Jack never pushed her. He just worked the ranch, fixing fences, feeding horses, always keeping the cabin warm. One morning, as the sun spilled light through the cracks of the barn, Clara stepped outside. She wore one of Jack's old shirts, still too big for her, and she stood barefoot on the cold wooden porch. The bruises on her face had faded, but the ones in her heart still lingered. Jack looked up from the corral and smiled softly. "Morning," he said. She nodded but didn't meet his eyes. "You shouldn't be kind to me," she whispered. "You don't know what I've done." Jack leaned against the fence. "Don't matter none. We all got ghosts." Her lip trembled. "You don't understand. I ran away. They'll say I'm a thief, a liar. Worse." He took a slow step toward her, his boots crunching against the dirt. "And do you believe him?" She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, her tears fell without shame. "Sometimes," she whispered, "when I see what I've become." Jack stopped in front of her. She turned away quickly, covering her face with trembling hands. "Don't look at me," she said through tears. "Please don't look at me." But Jack didn't move closer. Instead, he went down on one knee, in the dirt, in front of her, and said softly, "Then I'll look for you. Until you see yourself the way I do." Clara froze. The words struck her like thunder, gentle, yet powerful enough to shatter everything inside her. She lowered her hands slowly, eyes wide in disbelief. Jack's gaze was steady, filled not with pity but respect. "You're not broken," he said firmly. "You survived. And that makes you stronger than most folks I've ever known." The world seemed to stop. The sound of the wind, the creak of the barn door, even the distant cry of a hawk. Everything faded as tears filled her eyes. No one had ever said such words to her. Not once. Jack rose slowly and reached out his hand. "You can stay here as long as you want. Not as someone to be saved, but as someone who deserves peace." She took his hand, not because she needed help standing, but because for the first time she wanted to. The days that followed were still hard but different. Clara began to smile again, small, uncertain smiles at first, then real ones. The ranch began to echo with life again, the way it hadn't in years. Jack never asked about her past, and she never asked why he stayed. They both already knew. And sometimes, when the night was quiet and the firelight danced across the cabin walls, Clara would whisper softly, "Thank you," and Jack, sitting beside her, would just tip his hat and say, "Ain't nothing, ma'am. Just how a man ought to be." Ending call to action for channel Old West. Legends. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Old West Legends, where every tale brings the forgotten emotions, courage, and romance of the Wild West back to life. Your next favorite cowboy legend is just one click away.